Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. This will be an especially adult theme. So, heavy trigger warnings. We're going to be talking about surviving abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Nothing in the stream should be taken to be any type of legal or medical advice. And certainly, if you're dealing with an abusive relationship, you really should seek out a certified mental health professional to help you through it. Okay, so not seeing anybody in the side chat yet, but
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, it often happens that it's got to wait till people see the notifications and we get people wandering in 10 minutes later. Oh. So how's everybody just doing in general here?
Yeah,
I
pretty
am
good.
so good.
See, there's Junie.
I'm moderately
Hi,
neutral.
Junie.
Hey, Junie.
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay.
How's your brother
now,
doing, Jen?
moving on.
He's all right. He's back out of hospital again. And yeah, he's pretty good at the moment. We have to go out to Perth again in a couple of weeks for his assessment for transplant, and then go from there and see how he is. But yeah, he's pretty good at the moment. But he often is a lot better when he gets out of hospital. So hopefully this time around he'll stay good for a decent amount of time, because that's the ideal. You know, they want to. It's not so much they want to stretch it out, but I mean, it can take a while before you've got a transplant available for someone. So the longer you can stretch stuff out, the better. So hopefully it'll go that way. But yeah.
Quick question. Transplant for what?
Liver.
Exactly. Oh. Ouch.
Yeah.
Very, very tough.
Yeah.
Well, anything about the entire process, getting the organ, having the bad one, etc. From rooter to the tutor. Sucks.
I would totally donate some of my liver if I could.
Yeah, they don't do that here, actually. In the state I live, they prefer not to do live transplants. So it's it's one of those things. So he has to kind of wait for a good liver to come up in the morgue, as it were. That sounds dreadful when you say it, but it's the truth. So yeah, he's kind of got to wait on that, and he's got to get approved for it too, because there's only so many livers to go around. So it's like, do you tick all the boxes to be viable, and then is there somebody on the list who's more worthy than you? It's odd. It'd be so much better if we could print new organs for people, because then you can go through all this shit.
Well, and then you can also make sure they're compatible with the receiver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of artificial organs.
Printing. It will happen that way. It will be compatible because they're printing your DNA.
Yeah.
Question: what's your brother's blood type? Because that matters too. If it's a rare blood type.
Oh, she's on the phone for a minute.
She's on the phone right now. That's fine.
Yep.
It's
still the afternoon where she's at.
Yeah, that's something, a bit of a question, because the properties of our DNA a lot of times depend on the actual simplicity of the blood type. You know, for different conditions.
I have a rare blood type. It's funny, actually. My dad used to joke, because my dad and I have the same blood type, B positive, and only about 10% or so of the population, last time I checked, is B positive. And he used to joke that I was his organ farm, because I was the only one in the family that had the same blood type as him. So, you know, if he needed a kidney or something, that was my job. But now I have my son, who is also be positive. And my dad's like,
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
you're not my organ farm anymore. Now you can be the organ farm for my grandson. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. Like, I'd definitely give up a kidney for my kid. Honestly, I would go full John Q. Like,
Oh,
if
yeah.
he needed a heart transplant, I would be like, I will put a bullet in my head right now to give my heart to my kid. Man, that movie was so good. Like, and I get it. Like,
What
being
movie
a
was that?
parent, John Q. It had Denzel Washington in it, and his son had a heart defect that he was going to die, and they couldn't find a donor. And so he literally held the hospital hostage, saying, look, I want you to take my heart out of my body and put it in my son because I want my son to live. And it was like a whole big thing. I was like, I would totally do that. Like, I mean, I know it sounds horrible and violent to say that
Yeah.
I would do something like that, but like honestly, if it comes down to my life or my kids, my life is
Mhm.
expendable for my child. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well,
And I
if
have
we
one, so I know. Go ahead, Purple.
just if we're ready to move into our main topic, I was just going to ask who would care to go 1st with some of their experiences.
I guess I can start. Or would you like to start, Randy?
Um, actually, being a guy, I don't know. There's been a lot of conflict here and there has been a lot of mental abuse. But I think, as far as relationship abuse goes, you have the floor first.
Here's the
Well, I
thing. Like men, emotional abuse is still abuse, and if you went through that, by all means share your story. I have no problem allowing you to go first.
No.
yeah.
I have to remember a lot of things. So
Okay. Well, I'm in the same
you know,
situation that I had a relationship that got progressively more abusive as the years went on. Although it was just emotional and very controlling stuff, she hit me twice in the entire time. So it wasn't really a physical thing, but yeah, the emotional stuff definitely wears you down.
When it comes down to it, abuse just in general wears you down, and it is progressive. Like it does always. Well, I don't want to say always because I don't want to paint with that broad of a brush, but it does, in my experience, always get worse. And with me, it was with my ex-husband. And when things started out, everything seemed fine. But then, first it started with, being a little bit more controlling. And he did break my arm. But I had chalked it up
oh,
to an accident because it was, like a playful shove and I fell and broke my arm. So that first time he broke my arm, I chalked it up as an accident. And while it was mostly emotional and mental abuse, but there were physical abuses that went on as well. All in all, he broke my arm twice, and I have a stab wound on my arm from a paring knife from him.
Jesus.
And what really set the tone for our relationship was one night he was on my laptop that I had used inheritance money from my grandmother passing to buy. And he was playing World of Warcraft. And I had committed to a raid that night. And like being disabled, playing online games was kind of my only outlet at the time. And so I had told him, look, I have a raid to do at 8 o'clock and I need my computer back. And he didn't want
Hmm.
to give it to me. So it got closer to 8 and I unplugged it from the wall and I took the power cord and it's like, when it dies, then I want it back because I have to make this raid. I made the commitment. And he got angry and he took the laptop and he smashed it over his knee and he threw it at my
Oh,
head. I didn't
God.
handle it well. I was 20 years old, not the most mature thing to do, but he broke something of mine. So in retaliation, I broke something of his. I
Of
snapped his
course.
phone in half. Now, I'm not saying I handled that well. I didn't. And then I went outside and uselessly started like punching on his car because it was the only thing I knew that really mattered to him. And he came out and he grabbed me and he threw me down to the ground and he started kicking me. And this was the first time he'd actually gotten physical with me. And I kind of went into this state of shock. And there was actually a neighbor at the apartment complex that saw what happened and they called the cops. And when the cops got there, like, I am tears and snot and I'm hyperventilating because literally I just was physically assaulted. When I
Yeah.
mean, one thing, like, breaking stuff is different than hurting a person. Like, I would not
Oh, yeah.
compare the two, you know?
Mhm.
And this was the first time he'd actually gotten physical with me. And so I couldn't breathe. Like, I felt like someone was gripping my chest and I'm just like in this like panic state and I can barely communicate. And so, of course, he is very, very silver tongued, is the best way that I can put it. Like, even though there was a witness
I know what you
that, said that I was thrown to the ground and that he was kicking and stomping on me and like I'm all scraped up and everything, he had these police officers convinced that I was off my psychotropic drugs, which I've never been prescribed psychotropics. And basically had them convinced that I was just crazy and off my meds. And because the witness was intoxicated, they just believed my husband. And that really set the tone for the rest of our relationship that I wouldn't be believed. Even with a witness, no one was going to believe me. And that was when, like, the first of many layers of locks and chains, like, formed around me in my own mind. Because, like,
Yeah.
the hardest thing is, like, with an abuser, like, you have it where people will say, oh, well, if it's so bad, why don't you just leave? It's like, you don't understand, like, you get caged, and it's not even just the abuser caging you, but your own mind does that. And after a while, it wears down your spirit, it wears down your soul, where you start thinking,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to be able to do any better. Like, this, I know this, and if I just walk on these eggshells, if I just behave this
Exactly.
certain way,
Yeah.
that it'll be fine. Nobody else is going to want me. I'm damaged, or maybe I deserve this. Maybe I should have done this better or that better. And so I was with him for 5 years. And our 5th wedding anniversary, he came home with pizza and a Redbox movie. And for context, I was only about 85 pounds at the time because he didn't keep food in the house. I had no money of my own because I'm disabled. I have no income and I had no vehicle. And so he controlled me with money and with food. And if a friend had a pizza delivered to the house, he would get angry and eat the food in front of me after bringing home food for himself, and none for me, and then complain that I was making him get fat. That was his excuse for why we couldn't have food in the house, was because my cooking was making him fat. And
Oh boy.
so I'm eating this pizza, and it's the first thing I've eaten in like 3 days. And so, like, I'm stuffing this pepperoni pizza. It was the most delicious thing in the world. Like, when I know what it's like to literally be starving. And so he is trying to get the DVD player to work, and it's not working. And he gets angry, and the remote is like in between the two of us. And he tells me to stop stuffing my fat fucking face and hand him the remote. And again, I am like 84, 85 pounds. I was only 82 pounds when I left him. I'm 5'6". I was skin and
Whoa.
bones.
Yeah.
And like,
Jeez.
I honestly would not be here today if it weren't for just a chance occurrence that happened in one of the few friends that I maintained contact with. They had invited me out to go to a movie, and it was in Orlando. Like, we lived in the Deltona area, which is about halfway between Daytona Beach and Orlando. And my ex worked in Orlando. And so he would have to commute. And my friend Kelly was like, hey, why don't we go to a movie? We'll go to the theater where I work. We can catch a couple of movies. It won't cost you anything. And because I had been good, and because my ex realized that if I had little things, it made me more complacent. Like if he took everything away, then, it wasn't as good for him, I guess, to abuse me. Like, and I didn't listen as well. I wasn't as well behaved. I didn't just accept my lot as well. So he allowed
I
me to
know
go.
what you mean. The illusion of freedom with the submissive willingness is what he wanted. The
So
willingness to
he
be submissive.
Yeah.
Power.
So he allowed me to go with my friend to this movie. And um, when I rode down to work and dropped him off at work. And then I had the car for that day. And last minute, something came up and my friend had to cancel. And I was like, well, shit, now I'm stuck in Orlando with no money and I can't really go anywhere because if I drive back home, then I'm going to be in trouble for wasting gas. So I went to a comic book shop that I knew of where I could just spend the day just sitting there waiting for my ex to get off of work. And I happened to meet somebody at that comic shop. Um, and we got to
Hmm.
talking and had a lot of fun. And so I asked my ex if like I could ride to work with him on Fridays and just spend time at the comic book shop because I had a blast talking about games and anime and nerdy stuff and he I don't know why, but he was okay with it. And so every Friday I would go to the comic book shop. And that's actually how I met my partner, Michael. I joined his Pathfinder game, the Friday night Pathfinder game that he ran. And like that game saved my life because being there, not only did it help me kind of break out of that cage a little bit, but I started opening up them. And whenever they would go get food, they would realize that, I would say, no, 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 I'm fine. And finally, like they just got food for me and they actually would feed me at the store because they never saw me eat, they saw me as skin and bones, and so one day they just showed up with food and a few people at the store would buy me food whenever they would do food runs. And so I started getting more calories, which kind of helped increase my strength, and it made me feel a little bit more human. And then it started that I would go and spend the weekend down in Orlando. I would stay with a friend down in Orlando, and I basically stay Friday and go home Sunday. And then my ex realized that I was starting to get a little bit too human, like a little bit more to myself. So his whole thing was I wasn't
Ah,
allowed to do it because it was costing him too much in gas because I was weighing the car down and costing him more in fuel, my 84 pounds. So he wouldn't allow me to ride into work with him any longer.
My
So
God.
then the one friend that I had made at the store, his name was Adam. And so he actually drove from where he lived out to pick me up and would bring me down for the weekend. And I developed a not so healthy coping mechanism in that if something is stressing me out, I can completely put it out of my mind and kind of live in the moment. And that's what I would do those weekends from Friday until Sunday.
right?
I didn't think about anything bad. I was just focused on having fun, living my best life, enjoying the company of the guys and gals at the comic book shop, playing Magic or playing role playing games or when we'd watch anime, whatever. I was just living in the moment and loving it. But come Sunday, when it was time to go home and I knew what I was heading back to, I literally would just have an absolute breakdown and like just full on panic attack, like terrified to go home kind of thing. And that went on for a while.
There
And
you go, Jeannie.
yeah, no, Junie, I totally understand that. even though I found my ex absolutely detestable, I did my best to make myself available for him because I felt like, I had no use if it was like, okay, I'm a cum dumpster, but at least that's something. Like feeling completely like
Ugh.
nothing, and he would
Yeah.
basically, reject me for sex to then go masturbate to gay porn. So like I think he had his own issues, and we'll get to that. But and I don't mean lesbian, I mean like
Yeah.
all dudes. So anyways, I finally like got to the point where I wanted to get out. I wanted to escape, but I didn't know how I was going to do it because I require medication, round the clock medication, and I had Blue Cross Blue Shield Federal because he was a federal employee. So I had some of the best insurance in the country, and I was going to lose that if I left him. And that was a tether for a very long time. And also not knowing where I was going to go or what I was going to do because again, I'm disabled. I don't have any income of my own, and so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was starting to formulate a plan in my mind that I was going to escape.
Yep.
And like my ex, he
Ah.
would pass up sex when I consensually wanted it, but he would take it when he wanted it, which is a whole other thing. But
Yeah,
ultimately,
we all know what that thing is.
Michael
It,
saved my life. Like he and I started out as friends, but we just had a lot in common and we just enjoyed each other's company. We became like the best of friends, and that just kind of evolved into a relationship. And he's actually the one that gave me the strength to finally take that
Yeah.
leap and escape. And he gave me a soft place to land. I mean, he took me in, and we've been together almost 10 years now, and he gave me a beautiful son, and I still have lasting damage, not only emotionally. Yes, yes, Junie, that's great. I still have like emotional scars. I still have PTSD from it. Like I sometimes will wake up like covered in sweat and tears and snot because like I just had, night terrors that I was still back where I was in the early aughts rather than when I
Yeah.
escaped in 2011. So yeah, like it was terrifying for me. And ultimately, I did make it out, but another lasting thing, I don't feel hunger pains anymore. I forget to eat because I don't like normally you get, kind of a cramping in your stomach. You feel hunger pain when you don't
Mhm.
eat.
Mhm.
But so
mhm.
long of not eating, being starved for an extended period, I don't feel that anymore. So I will completely forget to eat, and if I get stressed out, I can't eat, or I literally get physically ill and will throw up. Like I have
Same.
lasting
Yeah.
damage and trauma from this relationship. And it's one of those things that I still struggle with to this day. Um, there are things that will trigger me, and like I will just shut down and just start crying. And it took a long time for me to be able to talk about it and not cry, but it's one of those things that there are a lot of other survivors that they can't, for whatever reason, find their voices. And it took a lot of clawing and digging and scratching my way through, but my voice is here and I can talk about it because it happens so often. And if you like just about every woman has had to deal with some type of trauma or abuse, on the milder scale of just a
Hmm.
controlling partner to the more extreme scale of like what I had to deal with of literal torture. I mean, there was a point in time where my ex-husband would take away my medications knowing that I would go through opiate withdrawal by not having them. And
Ugh.
if I wasn't good enough, I wouldn't get the medicine, or to punish me, would flush half the script knowing that I would have to ration them or just suffer. And there was one time, sorry, there was one time that I was going through withdrawal that he induced in me, and he literally shoved me down to the ground and just gave me one good solid kick in my affected RSD area. And I was writhing in pain on the floor for 2 days, lying there in my
Oh,
own
God.
filth as he would just step over me to go to work and come back. There
Jesus
was one time
Christ.
that I had a urinary tract infection, and I told him, like, I am prone to those, so, like, I know when it happens, and I told him, "Look, I need to go to the doctor or the hospital because I have a urinary tract infection." And he was like, I'll take you on my next day off," which was 4 days away. The pain got so bad that I waited for him to go to sleep, and I stole the car. I mean, technically.
yeah.
And I drove myself
Yeah.
to the hospital, and I was going like 45 miles an hour on I-4, which is like the main highway that runs from Daytona Beach to Tampa. And I barely made it, but I made a phone call to two of my friends that I had actually kept in touch with slightly. Like, we didn't talk as much as I would have liked, but like a lot of my friends kind of left me because of the way I was isolated by my ex, or they didn't like him. They didn't like how he was treating me, and I didn't have the balls to leave, so they just washed their hands of the situation. I lost a lot of friends that way, but
Yeah.
these two friends I didn't lose. Like, in fact, one of them I even made after my relationship had started. So I called them, and one of them picked up the other one, and they met me at the hospital. And they're like, I was urinating blood, and the hospital said that if I hadn't sought treatment within about 24 hours, my kidneys would have started to shut down. That's how bad the infection was. And so they kept me into the hospital for a few hours and gave me an IV drip of antibiotics, and then they gave me a script to go home with of antibiotics. And Laura and Paul took, and Laura drove my car, and Paul followed behind. They brought me to the pharmacy to drop off my script, and we waited for it. And this is the middle of the night, so these people, I will love them forever because, like, they got their asses out of bed in the middle of the night to meet me at the fucking hospital for this like massive fucking ordeal. And then they brought me home, and they stayed. They actually took care of me for the whole day. Like, they went and got me food, like some soup
Wow.
and fluids and cranberry juice. And like, literally, I had a king size bed, and one was sitting on one side of the bed, the other on the other side of the bed. And like, they literally like nursed me for like the whole day. And honestly, I was punished severely afterwards because my ex did not like the fact that these people were taking care of me.
Yeah.
But
Jesus.
I
Well,
could
keeping
have
you
died.
isolated is one of the main tools.
Yeah, I could have died, like, if my kidneys had failed and I didn't get medical attention. No, what I have now, I was diagnosed with when I was 19. It was actually right around the time I got married. Um, I had knee surgery when I was 18, and the knee surgery is what triggered the condition that I have. It's called reflex sympathetic dystrophy, or complex regional pain syndrome. And any trauma can trigger it. And essentially, my central nervous system is in overdrive, sending pain signals constantly. And it affects the limbic system, so sleep, mood, memory, all of that gets jacked up. Allodynia, so like hypersensitivity to touch, like just gentle rubbing like this is actually painful for me. I can't handle temperatures like lower than a little bit below body temperature. Like, I can't go swimming in a pool because a 75-degree pool, which would be comfortable for most people, feels like I'm jumping into ice water. Like, that pain and prickly sensation, that anything that's less than like 80,
Mhm.
85 degrees feels like that to me. And it's just a problem with,
Wow.
my central nervous system.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's no cure. It's degenerative. It's going to keep getting worse. My skin gets a mottled color. My hair and nails are affected. Like, it affects me in a lot of different ways. And again, it's something I was diagnosed with at 19. And so I have this chronic illness, and an abusive spouse, and it did not go well. I do believe that my condition progressed and is worse today than it necessarily would have been if I had not been through all of that trauma, because any
Yeah.
stress or trauma aggravates my
Well, periods of starvation certainly didn't help it.
I went 2 years
No,
without a
but
menstrual cycle because of the starvation. I had no period for 2 years because of the starvation.
Jeez.
Randy wants
but
to
you
say
started
something.
off knowing something that you've had that one condition. So at least that was always on your mind that you could study. It's not like a surprise, and now you got to go through all the motions of figuring shit out again. At least something got caught at an early age. Mine wasn't so lucky, and now I just, hey, I'm the harmonica man. How's it going? I'm just gonna have fun with you and play some music, and after that, you can all kiss my ass because I'm gonna take a nap.
I also because of COVID, I haven't been to the doctor. Like I go see my pain specialist. Like I have to, because I am on opiate medications and they require that you check in with your doctor every month.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
haven't gone to see I need to go see a neurologist, because I, for several years now, have been having cataplectic attacks that have been getting progressively worse. And cataplexia, it's basically if I feel a strong emotion, like if I get really angry or upset, my hands will go numb, and like I drop things, and like I can't grip my hands. And if I laugh, like not like a little chuckle, but like those like side splitting belly laughs where you get the tears rolling down your eyes,
Yep.
when I laugh
Mhm.
like that, I become temporarily paralyzed. My arms and legs don't work while I'm
Oh.
laughing, and it settles itself down within a minute or two of me stopping laughing. But all right, I need a little light story. So here's a funny story about one of the worst cataplectic attacks I've had in the past year. I was visiting with my family, and my son, we're still working on the potty training with autism. Like, it's been a struggle, but he's making a lot of progress, so yay. But he still wears pull-ups because like accidents happen. And so I was there, and my sister had asked me to give her a back massage. And so I'm kind of sitting on my sister's butt. She's laying on the floor, and I'm like working on her shoulders. And my son said I pooped, and he took off his pull up right by my sister's head. Now, my sister did
Mm.
not want kids. She, her husband got snippy snipped, and she's never going to have kids. She cannot do poop. She's never changed a poopy diaper in her life. And so she's freaking the fuck out. She's like, oh my God, oh my God. My mom's sitting there, not really helping much. She's trying to keep my son from like getting poop on my sister. So my sister starts screaming for my dad. I lost it. I laughed so hard. I've got tears rolling down my face. I went completely paralyzed. I could not move my arms or legs. So my body weight is pinning my sister down to the floor because I can't move. I'm paralyzed. So she's
Oh,
being pinned
geez.
by my body weight while my son's poopy butt is right by her face. And like she's screaming for my dad. My dad's just laughing too because he thought the thing was just absolutely hilarious. And so like I was like, I'm sorry, I can't move. Because like they know that I get paralyzed when I laugh really hard. I'm like, I can't
Mhm.
help it. I'm sorry. I'm like crying and like trying to breathe like while I'm telling her I'm sorry. Like I couldn't even roll off of her because my arms and legs, like I can move my head and I can blink, I can talk, like I'm fully aware during the cataplectic episodes. So like I know exactly what's going on. It's not like a seizure or anything. Like there's no loss of awareness. It's literally just loss of, it's like have you ever like woken up and you were sleeping on your arm, and you know
Mhm.
how it's like completely dead feeling, like almost like
Yeah.
asleep?
You just
That's
lose the
kind of
muscle
what
control.
exactly. That's kind of what it feels like for my arms and legs when I have those like laughing episodes. So there's actually two, like going through the list of things that can cause cataplexy. I'm not on any of the medications, and I don't have any of the genetic disorders because they have developmental delays that I don't have. So it really is narrowed down to one of two things that it could be: narcolepsy or MS. And so I do need to get it checked out. But with COVID, like, it was one of those things where it was like, I knew if I laughed, like if I'm standing and I start laughing kind of hard, my legs will give out and I'll just like drop like a sack of potatoes. Or if I get really excited, or if I get really angry, like I would lose like the ability to really move my hands. It's like I can move them a bit, but I can't grip anything, and I have like no fine motor control in my hands. They're just kind of like useless. But it's been getting a bit worse. So ultimately, I do need to get it checked out. And like, I don't know which I'd rather it be, if I'm being honest, like, of the two things. And I've been in a lot of like support forum groups for people with my condition, with RSD, or well, now they call it CRPS. But basically a lot of those like women that I was speaking to in there ended up with MS. So like, I'm worried that that's what it's going to end up being.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know cataplexy has very few things that, you know, cause it. And of the two, it's probably narcolepsy and not MS. But considering I've known a lot of women that had what I have, and then they end up with MS, or sometimes the other way around. Like, there was a surprise, and again, it's anecdotal, you know, cherry picked kind of thing, but ultimately there were like a statistically significant amount of the women that had this condition that ended up with MS as well. So like,
Yeah.
that worries me. But I'm not looking forward to a
Yeah.
spinal tap. You know, like, I've had
sure
that.
did.
It's not fun.
Oh God, so I've
The
had
sloth
one of
girl
those.
has MS, and fortunately, the episodes are still pretty rare, and she's got a pretty good hold on what usually triggers them and can avoid things. But she has had episodes of that, of just, you know, where suddenly her legs will just not support her weight and she can't move her legs.
Yeah, it's scary. Like, so I worry that
Been there.
with my, like, honestly, like, narcolepsy is probably the least shitty of the two between MS and narcolepsy. But knowing my luck when it comes to my health, I roll a nat 1 every single time it comes to health. Like, not only do I, you know, I had the knee surgery that was supposed to fix the popping, grinding instability in my knee and allow me to get back to dancing, because I did 7 years of jazz, tap, ballet. I was dancer. I did a bit of gymnastics. I
Didn't
did
know
martial
that.
arts. I was very active, and I couldn't do that because of the pain and instability in my knee. Not only do I still have the instability, but when after the surgery, I lost my insurance because I had Florida Healthy Kids, which was for people that were like 18 and under. And I was about to turn 19, and it was like October, so like the fiscal year was ending, so they canceled my insurance. And I was having like this burning pain, and I didn't understand it. So I needed to get in to see the doctor, and they're like, "Sorry, you don't have the healthcare." I was like, "I'll pay out of pocket. I don't care. Like, I need to see the doctor." Like, "Nope, sorry, we only see people that have, you know, Florida healthcare." So it wasn't until many, many months later that I found out that he had a private practice that wasn't associated with Florida healthcare. And I go in there and I explained to him, like, crying, like, I don't understand why this burning pain won't go away. Like, it's been a couple months since the surgery, and like, the pain is way worse than it was before the surgery. And so he does like an exam and everything. He's like, "Well, it looks like you have RSD. There's nothing I can do for you. Here's a referral to pain management." And he left. I didn't know what that was. I went home and I looked it up. I was like, "I don't have this. Fuck that. I don't want this." I spent so much money, and I went to multiple, I believe it was like 4 or maybe 5 other doctors. I didn't tell them I had a diagnosis. I just was like, "What's wrong with me?" And after being prodded and poked and MRIs and EEGs, where or I think it's the EEGs, where they stab you with the needles and zap you with electricity, they're like, "Yeah, they all came back with the same thing." And I'm like, "Well, fuck." So I did not cope with it the best. I was, 18, 19 years old. And And like I still have scars from self-harm because like I did not know how to cope with chronic pain. Like it wasn't suicide attempts or anything like that. They're just like really shallow cuts on my upper arms. But ultimately
okay. Yeah.
it was a way about feeling in control. Like I couldn't control the pain and it was getting worse. And like a shallow cut with a razor on my arm was something I could control. Like
If you can't
I got
control the
away from that.
pain, you create the pain. You're
Exactly.
the
So that was
master
kind of
of
where it was.
pain.
And again, like they
Yeah.
were shallow cuts on the upper arm, so like I still have the scars, but like it wasn't like ever like a suicide attempt or anything. But so there was that, and then when I was pregnant with my son, I had to stop my medications or most of them, and so the pregnancy was miserable. It was a nightmare, and it was high risk, and a planned C-section, because my body could not handle the strain of labor and delivery.
Yeah.
Um, and my son almost died. He spent, even though it was a planned C section, he was full term. Because I'm in so much pain, it made my body a hostile environment for him. And he spent the first month of his life in the NICU, even though he was full term. And because of that, I made the decision to have sterilization surgery when he was 4 months old. I had I went in for sterilization surgery and an endometrial ablation to stop my menstrual cycle because I had really miserable, painful periods. And it was like, the doctor was like, hey, I can do this as well, and it should stop your periods. And I'm like, do it. I'm down. So I had the surgery. Now, the surgery that he did, it was something called Assure. About 6 months after I had the surgery, it got a black box warning. And a little while after that, it got pulled from the market because the company that put it out was lying to the FDA and fudging paperwork. They basically put these little tubes in my fallopian tubes to build scar tissue around. Now, they can puncture the fallopian tubes, they can shift, they can cause internal bleeding. So I still have those inside of me. And I had the ablation, and that was fine for 5 years. And then at the 5-year mark, I started having cramping and spotting. Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, and I know this might be TMI, I'm sorry, but at the beginning of the pandemic, literally in December of 2019, I started spotting around my birthday, which is December 19th. I spotted for 3.5 weeks straight, which is not normal. And so I made an
Oh, no.
appointment with an OBGYN and found out that I have late onset endometrial ablation failure. I need a hysterectomy now in order to fix it. And I find this out at the beginning of COVID. So it's not a life-threatening thing, but finding a doctor that takes my insurance and that is willing to cut out the uterus of a 34-year-old woman, that's going to be a challenge. And add a pandemic on top of it, I've had to deal with it for this entire time where it is cyclical, like not quite like a menstrual cycle because stress can trigger it as well, where it literally feels like Freddy Krueger is shredding my uterus. And so I will get spotting.
Ouch
and then
and shit.
So with knives and all.
Yeah, knives and all. And then in January of 2020, I had already been to the gynecologist, got the diagnosis, and then I had something happen that had not happened since I had the surgery, and that was I bled. And I literally bled so much. I bent over to pick something up, and it was just like a torrent. Like I felt literally blood flowing out of me. And it scared the shit out of me. I went back to the OBGYN and like, yeah, that's just part of the failure. Like, and
You would have been feeling like your waters are broke again.
yeah, even though this was 5 years after sterilization surgery.
Yeah.
So it was scary. And I've been dealing with this for over a year now. And basically, I haven't really had the bleeding as much. I've gone back to the spotting and the debilitating cramping. I'm not sure what happened with that whole bleeding thing. Maybe maybe the sterilization surgery, the Assure tube, like tore part of my fallopian tube, and that's why I bled so much. But ultimately, I get to deal with cramping and uterus shredding pain and spotting, even though, that was supposed to all have gone away when I had the surgery. So literally, I have really shit luck whenever it comes to surgery or medical anything. And now I'm, again, 34 years old, and I have to have a hysterectomy. That's the only thing that's going to fix the problem that I have with my uterus because of the surgeries that I had done. And again, the procedure seemed fine when I had it. Now, the ablation failure, about 20 to 25% of women end up having that failure and need hysterectomies going forward. And ultimately, I knew that that was a risk. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll get lucky and I won't be part of the 1/4. I wasn't. And I ended up being part of that 25%. But with the sterilization surgery, with the Assure, like there was a class action lawsuit. I didn't find out about it until after the fact. But again, they were actually fudging documents they were submitting to the FDA. The FDA let them put it to market before it even had like the couple of years of like tracking. And they're like, oh, you need to submit tracking information for the next 5 years, following up with all the patients to us. And they were fudging the documents that they were sending to the FDA to make it appear safer than it actually was. But yeah, I have those in my body right now.
In answer to Jeannie's statement about it's not easy to get sterilized, then no, it's not. If you're under 40 and you want to be sterilized, you will find doctors putting out roadblocks all the time. They do not like to sterilize young people.
I was fortunate in that. Also, I was still technically married to my ex-husband when I had my son. We had been going through the divorce for almost 2 years. And so I still had my health insurance from him. The judge had said that he was not allowed to change the health insurance at all during the divorce proceedings. He canceled the insurance, and I went through a chunk of my pregnancy with no prenatal care, even though it was a high-risk pregnancy, because he canceled the insurance. He almost got arrested for it because the judge actually was about to issue a bench warrant for him because of violating the court order to keep the insurance in place. And it got returned at the 11th hour. But I had a false labor instance, and I went to the hospital knowing it was going to rack up a huge bill, but not really having any other choice. And I was worried about premature labor, high-risk pregnancy. And the doctor that saw me actually said, you know what? I'm taking you on as a patient. You need, obstetrics. Like you need a doctor. So we'll deal with the insurance later. We'll deal with the payments later. I'm not worried about that. I am going to see you. And so for the end of my pregnancy, I was seeing this doctor, and he was like, we're not going to worry about the financial stuff. We're just going to worry about the health of you and your baby. And he
That's
delivered
awesome.
my son, and he's the one that actually did the sterilization surgery. So I don't hold it against him because, like, he's not the one that lied about it. It was the company that
Yeah.
lied, and, they lied to the FDA. So, like, he saved me and my son's life, and I absolutely know that because my son needed to be rushed to, like, the NICU, like, immediately upon birth because he wasn't oxygenating. My son would have died if he wasn't born in a hospital. So ultimately, he saved my son's life. He saved my life. And I have nothing but love for that man. But he no longer sees patients unless they're pregnant. So I thought about going to him and having him do the hysterectomy, but he's no longer seeing anyone if you're not pregnant. Because I know he would do it. He put up no roadblocks to the sterilization surgery at all because he understood, because of the high-risk pregnancy, because of my condition, because of the fact that my son spent a month in the NICU even though he was full term. It's like, no, I totally understand. You don't want to go through that again and risk having a child that does not survive. I have no problem doing the sterilization for you. So not only did he save my son's life, but he was willing to sterilize me even though I was only 26 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So nothing but love to that doctor. I just wish he was
Well, I'm
being
glad you found a good
non-judgmental.
doctor willing to help you.
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
absolutely. I
exactly.
don't even want to think about what would have happened
Hell's
if I
going
hadn't.
on? God damn glasses.
Yeah.
But
I,
When
w-
I
I
when I
wonder
was
how.
with my fiance, she needed a hysterectomy, but since that was going to sterilize her, the doctor for some reason thought they had to ask me about it. And I'm like, why the fuck should I even have an opinion on this? She's in chronic pain. She needs the surgery.
it's her fucking body.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
off.
Wow.
Yeah, that's that whole thing of men have rights over women's bodies issue,
Yep.
which has a religious.
Yeah, that's
underpin to
actually,
it.
in my opinion, that is a non-issue. That is bullshit.
Definitely a non.
100%. That's
But
it.
in some states, it's actually even written into the laws that if the woman's married, that they have to have the husband's consent.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
Well,
Crazy
watch
pants.
Godless Granny's last video. Holy shit. On Texas.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing, I texted my sister earlier. I'm like, hey, what you doing? I was thinking about coming over and visiting after, 3-4 months of you not freaking talking to me. Because, I'm not a right winger. I must be your enemy. But she's like, oh, friends of ours come from Texas and stuff. So now's not a good time. Okay, then. Off you go. I don't give a shit. I
I'm
hang out
sorry
with
I
smarter people.
Struck out at the beginning. I wasn't intending that, but I got a phone call from an old client in Perth, and their whole file server has died
Yeah.
on them, and they're like, "You're the only one who knows how this system works." And I go, "Yeah, well, you've got a major problem."
Well, it's all right.
Maybe I've
It's middle of the afternoon for you, so
Oh yeah. So I'm going to be spending the weekend trying to
Gotta
find
work.
somebody for them who actually understands the system, so they can fix it for them come Tuesday, because we
Yeah.
got a long weekend. But yeah, they're a bit panicking, but I've reassured them your files are okay. It's just that the server's lost its configs, so they're going to have to be rebuilt, and there's nothing I can do about it at the moment. I'm sorry. What did I miss? Did we cover the actual topic? Because
Mhm.
mostly all you missed was Kitty explaining all of her personal experiences.
Yeah, which I mean, Jen has heard some of them before.
yeah, well,
so-
we have talked about our personal experiences before with each other, so
Yes.
I totally get where Pert's from. I mean, I've talked about my personal stuff quite a few times on the channel. The fact that I was abused as a kid by a friend of the family. Well, say friend of a family, not a friend of the close part of the family, but work associate of my brother-in-law is probably more accurate than friend of the family.
Mhm.
And later on, my ex-husband, he was he was more emotionally abusive than physically abusive, but the physical side of it came in physical threats without actually carrying them through. But it done in such a way that he had me believing that he would. So, like, if you don't do the right thing by me, you're going to end up dead somewhere.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, another thing that I noticed with my ex was like an emotional like roller coaster, like where he had one of my cats put to sleep. He basically had one of my cats put to sleep, and then when he told me about it, like I obviously got emotional and started crying. And as he's soothing me, he's telling me how he's going to basically kill my other cats.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's dreadful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also got because I mean it's hard because my ex-husband was great when we were first together, and then he got a medical condition called transverse myelitis, which is an infection of the spinal fluid, and it got to his brain and it caused lesions in his brain, which changed his personality. So I had this whole guilt thing there that I mean, you shouldn't have guilt for something like that, but this thing that I can't leave him because it's not his fault. Don't ever think like that, anybody. If you, regardless of the reason why a relationship turns bad, it's never about fault. The relationship has gone bad. Get out of it. If it can't be fixed, it can't be fixed. You need to get out of it. You don't just keep at it because you feel sorry for somebody else, or there's mitigating circumstances. I mean, yes, mitigating circumstances. If the problem is the person's ill and you're looking after them and stuff like that, but not for the not because they got some reason for suddenly going violent. And my cat just got itself caught up in cables. Did you fall off that computer? Did you, cat? It's good thing you didn't pull the webcam off.
I'm a little pissed at my cats because I had threaded my serger and one of them chewed on the thread at the top, so now I have to rethread the thing.
No.
I'm gonna sew a little cover for it tomorrow so that they can't do that. But I'm just like, but it's silver lining. It's good practice because I need to practice threading the serger.
But yeah, my ex had major anger management issues, complete lack of trust. Like he wasn't working. I was. Granted, he was an American and he was trying to get. He wasn't allowed to work here, so that was fair enough. He was a trust fund baby, so he had a trust fund, so he didn't think he needed to work. But if I went to work, I would be getting, text messages throughout the day going, "You're not cheating on me, are you? You better be home at the right time, or I'll know what you're doing." And then if I was home a little bit late, it'd be, "Who are you with? Who you been cheating on me with?" A complete paranoia. But that paranoia was like, "No, you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. If you speak to me wrong, I'm going to back you into a corner and threaten to beat the pulp out of you." And that was what I was living with towards the end of that relationship.
That was where my relationship with my ex had gone in the later years.
Yeah. In the end, he actually realized how bad he got in amongst all of that, and he opted to leave rather than continue to put me through it. So in the end, he did figure out that how bad he was. But,
so he recognized it eventually.
Oh yeah, but after he left, he wanted to come back. But by that point, I'd gone and got some therapy, and I was like, "Nah, you're not coming back. No, go away. I'm not going through that again because I know it's not going to change." Because whilst he wanted to come back, he didn't want to have therapy. He couldn't. Whilst he knew there was a problem at the time, he's like, "Oh no, I'm over it now. I'm fine." And go, "No, you're not, because you're being passive aggressive with me now over the phone or over an email." So I actually ended up getting to the point where I actually kept all the emails he sent me so that I would have evidence if I ever needed to get a restraining order or anything like that. But fortunately, he went back to the US, so I didn't have to worry about that because he would never got back in here again. But yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. He threatened to kill himself and everything if I didn't take him back. It was just constant emotional blackmail and pressure. So, like, if anything went wrong, it was always my fault, and I always had to take the blame for anything. And and woe betide if actually there was something that I did wrong, because then the shit really hit the fan, and it would be a case of I'm wondering if I'm going to come out of this without getting badly injured, because there was numerous times he'd backed me to a corner, he'd have me on the ground, I was crying my eyes out, and I really thought he was going to really hurt me. He never actually did. Fair call to him. He did manage to pull himself away from actually doing me physical harm, but the emotional harm, the emotional strain, the mental anguish he put me through was unbearable. As Kitty would know. It's.
And another thing, family didn't want to hear it. I had said earlier, the cops not taking the domestic abuse seriously the first time they were called, the first time he got physical with me, that set the tone. And then one night, a couple years after that, I had actually gone to a family member, and I mean, not making excuses for them, but they had been drinking, and this is my godmother, And I broke down, and she was the only person in the family that I actually told what was going on. And she's very conservative Christian. Her response was, well, maybe if you were, essentially if you were a better wife, if you had a hot meal and a cold beer waiting for him, maybe he wouldn't abuse you.
Oh, what? I never
Despicable.
got that, but
Yeah,
I never
that's
told my
usually how it
family
goes.
exactly what was going on behind the scenes. My mum and dad thought Mike was absolutely lovely because I never said anything. And he was always really nice to them. My niece, on the other hand, who would come around and see how he treated me when the other people weren't always watching, she was like, you need to get out of there. You need to get out of there. It's not good
Yeah.
for you.
I remember the night that I left. Michael and I had already kind of sort of started seeing each other. Like, we hadn't made it official, but like my plan was to basically kind of get my bearings, and I was going to leave. And the night that I left, I was playing World of Warcraft with Michael. We were actually in a Skype call because this was kind of before Discord was a thing, and I didn't want to pay for a Ventrilo server. So we're in a Skype call while we're playing. And earlier that day, I had taken a call from my ex-husband's sister, and I'll explain. She came out to me on the phone that she was trans and that she had chosen a new name that she wanted to go by. And, I was like, hey, I'm happy to have another sister-in-law, if you need makeup or, clothing tips or any girly shit, I'm here for it. My husband, who was conservative, Republican, Catholic, very transphobic, lost his shit that I was encouraging the degeneracy of his brother. And he came in while I'm playing the game and spent a good 30 minutes just screaming at me and berating me. Michael heard every word. And then he goes and he trips the breaker to my bedroom, turning the power off. So I texted Michael and I explained to him what had happened. And he said, you need to call your parents and you need to get them to come get you right now. And I was like, no, it should be fine. He's like, no, I have a bad feeling about this. Get them to come get you now. And I'm so glad that I did. I called my parents and I was like, look, Mom, Dad, I need you to come get me. Like, I don't feel safe. I just need you to come get me. So it was a good 30 minute or so, 45-minute drive to get to where I lived from where they were. And so I went and I turned the breaker back on so that I could see everything. I needed light to be able to see, to pack up some of my things. And my ex lost his shit, slammed me into the wall and said, I didn't authorize you power, and tripped the breaker again. So I had to use the light from my phone, which I think was an iPhone 4. Like, I had to use the flashlight on my phone to pack these things in this room. And I got just like the things that were most important to me. And when my parents got there, my ex was sitting on the couch. And just my mom like saw him through the window, and she said just setting eyes on him made her blood run cold because he had this like dead look in his eyes and he was just staring straight ahead, and like they're knocking and he's just staring like straight ahead. And my mom's like, hey, are you going to let us in? Like, what the fuck? So he opens the door, doesn't say a word. And my parents come in and like I had a couple of bags that I had packed. And then I grabbed my computer, which was a gift from a friend of mine. After my ex had broken the laptop, my friend gave me their old computer. It wasn't great, but it was good enough to play World of Warcraft, and they knew that was my main outlet. So they had given me the computer. All I had to do was put a power supply in it. And so I go to take the computer, and my ex is like, no, that computer's not leaving here. And I'm like, no, it was a gift. He was like, fine, then you're going to rip the power supply out because I paid for that power supply and you're not leaving here with that power supply. My dad literally got between us and said, I'll cut you a fucking check. I don't fucking care. She's taking the computer. She's taking her things. End of story. And like my dad's a Vietnam vet. He's kind of scary when he gets mad. So like there wasn't an argument that night, and so I left and went with my parents, and then a couple of days later I actually took and moved in with Michael, and I actually didn't go back. Like I went back to get my things, but only with at least two guys with me to not only help me load the stuff because my crippled ass can't really lift and lug heavy boxes easily, but also for my protection. And I would go on days that I knew my ex was going to be at work. Only once did I actually, I think, bump into him. And like one of the guys that I had was a big guy. He was like 6'1" and like 400 pounds. And the other one was Michael, who is also 6'1", but more like 160, 170. So like leaner, but not like
skinny.
Yeah.
Bean
So
pole.
anyways, so like we were packing up my things, and we did it in like multiple trips, like just getting everything that I cared about. And some of it is still in boxes in the garage that I haven't been able to bring myself to go through, because just going to those boxes like kind of sends me back to like when I was fleeing for my life. So it's been 8 years, and
Yeah.
like there are things that are in there that I could probably throw them out, but I don't feel like I can do that either, because I feel like I have to face it, and I have to unload that and get that, I have to get past it. I haven't gotten there yet.
No, I
And
know. Just going through the stuff, it can make it all come flooding back, and it can be very overwhelming.
one of the boxes out there is the
Yes,
wedding box
it
that has
can.
like all the like favors from my wedding and pictures, and that one I want to burn it. Like I need that catharsis, I think.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I escaped then, and I didn't go back, and I would get dozens or hundreds of messages from my ex just berating me and saying all these like horrible things, and then like saying, well, I'm not going to take you when you come crawling back, kind of thing, like literally trying, no one's going to want you, you're damaged, you're not going to have any better than me.
Yep.
And just all of these things. And if it wasn't for Michael, I don't know if I would have had the strength to stay away, because I had been so broken down by that point that
Yeah.
I lost my sense of me. Like, I'm not the same person I was. I mean, granted, no
That
one's the same
is
person
usually
after
how it
10
No,
happens.
we're
years,
all different.
but I am not the same person I would have been if not for that. And like I still have scars, like physical, emotional, mental. Like I was
Those
very
mental
much
Virtual
stuff
high
are really
five
hard
to
to
the
deal with.
kitty. You survived and went past it. High five.
Yeah.
Yes.
But again, I feel like I need.
Their whole stick is to tear you down, so you have to base your self-worth on them.
Yeah.
And you stop being
Yep.
an individual in that sense, and you just become the thing that they want you to be.
Yeah, they
And
convince you that they're
ruins
doing you a
it tears you
favor by
apart.
being in the relationship with you, and that you're not going to be able to get anything that's as good as what you have now.
Oh, you won't get anything is generally what
Jeepers, why does
you were
that sound
told.
familiar?
And this will be the first time that I've ever talked about this like publicly. I actually had an abortion because I wasn't sure if it was from the last time he had sexually assaulted me or if it was Michael's, and I wasn't going to take that chance. Also, it was so soon after coming out of that relationship. I was a mess. There was no way I could handle that. And then, a few years later, things, like I got better. It took a long time, and I'm still not fully healed from all of it. But I have a beautiful child now, and honestly, people say, "Oh, if you could change anything, would you?" As fucked up as it sounds, I honestly wouldn't change anything, because I wouldn't have my son. I might have a child, but it wouldn't be him, because it took the exact series of events that led me to where I was to end up where I am now. And Another funny thing, I have a picture of me from MegaCon in 2006. This is before I got married. Or no, it was 2005. I had purple hair. No, it was 2006. Sorry. I had purple hair, and I was dressed up as Leela from Futurama. And I have a picture of me sitting next to two guys. One was dressed as Zoidberg, and the other as Fry. And at that convention, right as I was sitting there on the floor, Michael actually walked past me. He was at the same convention at the same time, and this was 5 years before we met. And like he actually remembers seeing me sitting there on the floor in that convention hall. And it's funny, if we had bumped into each other and actually like met there instead of like met after I had been through everything, I wonder how things might have played out, and if I might still have my son, because it'd be the same genetic material. That might be the only change that I would have made, is like meeting him then, but I'd have to see if it would play out the same and I'd still have my son or not. Like if I wouldn't, then I wouldn't change anything, because my son is my reason for living. Like people say, how do you deal with the pain, being in that much pain every minute of the day? My son. He is literally my sole focus, like that light that just keeps me crawling forward no matter how hard it gets. And I would not probably still be alive if it weren't for him. I definitely wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Michael saving my life. But, the pain has gotten worse. The trauma I went through, the trauma of pregnancy exacerbated my condition, and I'm in more pain now than I was even before I was pregnant. So honestly, if it wasn't for my son, I probably would not still be drawing breath. And I know that's a really dark thing to turn on, and I'm sorry, but it is a dark, serious conversation.
Yeah.
You're a very strong person, Kitty. You're very strong.
But I can speak firsthand on how fucking draconic and bullshit the laws in Florida are if you're going to get an abortion, because they force you to have a transvaginal ultrasound where they shove a giant wand up your vaginal entrance and make you see that you have a baby growing inside of you for the ultrasound. Not only do they make you do the ultrasound, but it's a transvaginal ultrasound. So they are actually penetrating you for the ultrasound and making you sit there for that before they'll allow you to have the abortion.
State-sponsored rape.
Florida sucks anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way around it. From what I hear, it sucks.
Well, yeah. Kitty, I really appreciate you, sharing all your personal experiences here.
I'm a bag of trauma. What can I say?
Yeah.
Bundle of.
I did say I wanted to keep this to an hour and a half, so I don't think we should really get into anyone else's at this point, because there wouldn't really be a lot of time. Oh no, that's fine. And even Mage was saying about some of their experiences here, so I think this is probably something that we'll have to come back and do another show on another day. And also, I had some other people who were supposed to be in the panel tonight who. Well, one of them said that she just was feeling she couldn't do it tonight. And, that was fine. I wasn't going to push anybody into it, and two others that I don't know what happened. I just didn't get responses when I sent the links out. So yeah, this is definitely a topic that we'll be doing again another day here.
I'd be happy to be there for moral support for others. Sorry, I'm like, It's a lot.
Understandably.
Me too.
Yeah. It is.
Like, I'm doing everything I can to hold in the tears, so they haven't fallen yet, but I can feel them, like, that feeling of when they start collecting behind your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
This is the topic that Kitty and I have been planning on covering for a while. And we got a few other people as well that we want to go through, and we're actually going to make a series about people who are survivors, who have got through different things and managed to survive, because we think it's an important thing to talk about. And for me, it was a lot longer ago than for Kitty, so even though it's still hard to talk about. As you know, it was only something I was prepared to talk about in the last couple of years. Yeah. Even to the fact that I was abused as a kid was something I'd actually hidden and actually came out during a stream, because oh crap, that did actually happen. It wasn't just a bad dream, it actually happened. Because we suppress the worst of these things, and sometimes you'll be there and you'll be talking about it and you go, oh crap, this also happened.
Yeah. I don't go into much about growing up really, because I've got about 10 years that I've got a pretty substantial block on that I don't remember most of what happened. So it's like I have some suspicions, but I don't talk about it because I'm really not sure.
Jen, I know what you're talking about there, like the denial thing. I went to prom with the guy that raped me and stole my virginity because I was trying to pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, we do these things. I never told anyone about what happened when I was 12 with the guy who worked with my brother-in-law, and yet I have talked about it to some extent on streams and stuff like that. But it's something that I really buried. I tried to laugh it off as it was nothing that mattered. But in an actual fact, especially for a young trans kid who was in the closet at the time, it was absolutely dreadful for me because and my brother-in-law enabled some of it, some of the emotional abuse that came after it. He didn't know about, I don't think he knew about the physical abuse, but the emotional crap that came afterwards, he enabled some of that. So it was probably an aspect that actually pushed me into the closet more because I didn't want to get, if I pretend to be a guy, maybe this won't ever happen again, sort of thing. You're trying to protect yourself, and it was quite horrific for me, and it's something I pushed down so far I'd forgotten it had happened. I'd literally push it so far away. It was like I'm not remembering this.
Yeah.
And when it came back to me, I can't even remember whose stream it was on when it happened. I had to go off like you can't. I could not keep talking about it. I'm actually struggling now to talk about it. And I'm still being selective about what I'm saying because I don't really want to talk about it because it was something that happened to me as a kid. I can talk about what happened with my ex when he raped me, but not in detail. I can't talk about these things in detail because they're hard to rape and abuse, that sort of abuse, more so than the physical side of the abuse that I had from my ex. Rape side of it, or when it becomes sexual, when it becomes that intimate in an attack, it is very, very hard to articulate and really let people and really get the good feedback. But I think it's important that we at least try to have those conversations because there's people out there who are still in the it's way back and I've hidden it and it doesn't matter anymore and don't realize how much personal damage it does to them. And if we can be that little bit stronger and bring voice to this sort of thing, it does make it easier for them. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We're going to kind of wrap this up here and go to the after show, though, because I had posted things out that we were only going to be here for about an hour and a half and then go to a lighter chill stream for people to unwind.
I'm sorry I took up so much of the time.
No. Do not apologize.
It would have taken up more of it. I've been here for more of it, so it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I know it takes a lot out of you just to try and retell the stories.
A little bit.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think our show will probably end up being pre-recorded just so that we can gather ourselves in the middle of it. It won't be a live stream because I don't think we could do the discussion in the live stream with the detail.
That probably would have been a better idea here, actually, to be able to do it and be able to take breaks.
I'm okay. Like I know I'm a little bit of a mess, but I'm okay. Like
I love you, Kitty.
I love you guys too.
I think I'm late today because I subconsciously
there you go.
did not want to talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I get that, Jen.
apologize.
No, it's okay.
To be an unconscious coward. Sorry.
So it's fine, Jen. Not everybody's ready to talk about this, but it's also the reason why we think it's important to talk about it because those of us who can, it helps other people know that A, they're not alone.
Mhm.
B, the world is kind of shit, but we can rise up above it and we can be better than it. And with the right people around us, we can be stronger than it. So, and don't take it all on yourself. Reach out. There are those of us who've been there, and we'll give you a hug when you need it. We really will, because it's important that we stand up for each other and that we be a voice for each other, and that we let people know that you don't give up. Don't give in to the pain that's being brought on you. Don't give in to the bullying and the abuse and the physical torture that it really is.
Mhm.
And try and rise above it. Find the help. Because there's always somebody who will help there, whether it's law or whether it's a doctor or whether it's family. Somebody's going to be there who's going to hold out that hand and give you the help you need. And
Just having someone to listen.
Don't think that you
can
owe
help.
your abuser anything, because you don't owe them anything at all.
Absolutely.
The last person I told about all this is stealing $150 an hour from me.
Wow. That's more than prostitution.
I want to hug you, kitty.
Okay, well, I feel bad about cutting it off here because I know there are people here who have a lot to say yet, but
This can be a series.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
something else we need to do more of. We need to
Yeah.
have more awareness streams, and we need to have more awareness videos where we get people together and talk.
Because it happens every day. Most women will experience some form
Mhm.
of abuse like this on the
And a
milder
lot of
scale.
men do too. So if you're
Yeah,
a man
men
who's
too.
experiencing abuse, don't hide it. It
Yeah,
doesn't make you
exactly.
less of a man because you've been abused, or because you're going to own up and ask for help, because everyone needs help.
I think Randy's got something to say on that.
Sorry, Randy.
Well, I was just going to say I don't have any problems. I got a backpacker. So continue on.
Oh, okay.
But no, and I wasn't trying to exclude men. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
honestly, people will be abused, and it happens every single day. If you think of every person you know, I guarantee at least one of them is dealing with some form of abuse.
Right.
And there are so many women and men that are abused, and they can't find their voices to speak out about it. And that is one reason why I talk about this. It's hard. It
Yep.
is. I'm okay. I'm in a place where I can talk about it. I might cry, I might get emotional, but I'm okay. I'm in a place where I can talk about it. But a lot of people aren't, and I feel
Yeah.
in solidarity as a survivor, I feel almost a responsibility, a duty to speak out and use my voice because I can, because there's so many that can't. Either they're still in that relationship and they're dependent on that other person for survival, and they feel that they can't escape, or they've built that cage around themselves so tight that they're just trapped. And I don't know,
Well, and
I'm
I
kind of
think
rambling here, but you
Yeah.
get what I'm
Be a
saying, right?
survivor is what we're saying. Be a survivor. Come and join us and be a survivor.
Be a survivor,
don't let
not
it
a
drag you
victim.
down. Don't be a victim. Well, you were a victim, but stop it. Try
Yeah.
and find your way out of being a victim and become a survivor, because
Exactly.
it's so worth it.
Well, and anybody who's watching this, I mean, if you're not feeling comfortable reaching, talking about publicly, you could reach out to any of us privately too.
Yes,
And
definitely.
that's
Yep.
like Kitty was saying. Just having somebody to talk to can be a big help in figuring out for yourself what's going on,
Yeah.
because so much of the control of the abusive relationships is getting you to doubt yourself.
Honestly,
Gaslighting.
Kitty and I have
That's
been
where
good
it
for each
comes
other.
from.
Yeah.
It is literally where the term gaslighting comes from. Is you had
Yeah.
a husband that was essentially trying to convince his wife that she was crazy,
Mm.
and that what she was seeing and experiencing wasn't true.
Yeah.
That's the true origin of gaslighting. And it happens every day in relationships. And
I think that's
having
because it was a true
someone
story that happened in the Gaslight District.
having somebody that you can talk to and get their perspective, because sometimes you can be too close to a situation to even realize what's going on. You might not even see all of the ways that you're being abused. It might not register to you. It's just
Yeah.
normal. But when you have an outside perspective where they're like, no, honey, that's not
I
normal.
didn't
That's not it.
recognize a lot of it until I was out of it.
A lot of it comes in very slowly because the relationship
Mhm.
can last quite a few years, and initially it's good, and and the abuse comes in slowly. It comes in piecemeal. It comes, it builds up to a point of control. It's what, and it is about control.
Okay. Well,
Um,
I do need to end this here so I can take a quick break.
go on
And
to the other one. That's
yeah.
okay, Perk. You do that. There'll
okay,
be
so
other
Very well.
opportunities.
yeah, thank you everybody, and yeah, we will definitely be continuing this at a future date. I'll just have to see when is going to work for people. So for now, bye bye, and I'll be back in like 10 minutes here. We'll do the after party so everybody can just kind of chill out and relax. And Stool, you can come into that and talk about mermaids.
I'll hang out for
Okay,
the after
so-
party for a few
Well-
moments, and then I'll head to bed.
Okay, so bye bye for now. There's another link already on my channel for the after party, and I'll be sending out the StreamYard links in a few minutes for that. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.